Hey, it is episode 12 of the Sporting Tribune today, and the family here at the Sporting Tribune keeps growing and getting bigger, and more importantly, getting better, even specifically here in Las Vegas. Proud to bring you in for the first time and welcome you to the family. Willie G. Ramirez. Willie, how are you?
What's happening, Adrian? How's things going?
Hey, things are going good. Like I said, the family is getting bigger. We're glad to have you. And since this is your first time on the podcast, like we're gonna get into the sports later, but I just feel like for people who don't know your work and don't know you, we really need to get to know you. So I'm asking you, do you want to partake in the speed round?
Let's go.
All right, let's do this. Are you a part of the mafia?
There's no such thing as the mafia.
Smart answer. What's your all-time favorite suit that you've worn?
Ooh, uh, the one that I get the most reviews about is a royal blue suit, which it's hard for me to get rid of, but I've had for a long time, and now I try to mix it up with different slacks. Um, there have been some in the past, back in the day, waiter coat style, and my zoot suits, but the royal blue gets the rave reviews.
I'm gonna need you to send me the picture of that. We'll put it up here on the video so everyone can see. What's the best gym in Las Vegas?
The perfect gym, Perfict.
Best hotel in Vegas?
I will always say Caesars simply because it was my favorite growing up since moving here in 1972.
Your favorite part of your job?
My favorite part of my job is probably writing stories on subjects in which don't normally get the exposure they deserve. So it's nice to cover the Raiders and the Devontae Adamses and the Josh Jacobses and the Max Crosbys. It's nice to cover the Aces and the Asia Wilsons and the Kelsey Plums and the Golden Knights. But when you find subject matters in which you can sort of shine a spotlight to allow somebody to smile for a 24-hour period and grab a spotlight, those are the best ones.
Your favorite TV show of this year or last year?
Oh man, does it have to be brand new, or can it be like an old show that I was turned on to?
Nah, in the age of streaming, everything's valid.
Okay, so I'm currently on my second run through Friday Night Lights, which somebody it took a while for people to get me onto it because I was always turned off by the idea of, just a show about high school football. But it turned out that the writing is stupendous, and I am right now a Ginny and Georgia fanatic. Love the show Ginny and Georgia.
There it is. When did you meet Arash?
The first season of the Golden Knights, 2017-18, and we got close during the postseason run. Went out one night. I took him out to he loves old school Vegas, the vibes of it, reading about it. His mom is a Johnny Carson fanatic. So took him to an old school restaurant and took him to an old school show, so he could get an old school vibe of Vegas before the Stanley Cup puck drop.
That is awesome. Our last speed round question. Would you ever be completely dark in a room with hard drugs for 4 days and just yourself?
What are hard drugs?
I don't know how to pronounce what Aaron Rodgers is doing, but that stuff.
I would do the darkness retreat. I actually looked it up. It's roughly $1,300 for 7 days, which you don't have to do the whole 7 days. Um, I would definitely do it with cannabis. I wouldn't do it with any other drug. I've only done one other drug in my life back in the early '90s, because they were the two drugs that were of choice back then. There are far too many things that involve I don't know what. Um, I don't necessarily consider mushrooms like the holistic whole get into a positive vibe to get the serotonins working. I don't know if I consider that drugs, but I would definitely take a bag of weed into a darkness retreat, and I would definitely do what Aaron Rodgers just did.
Well, let's see if it'll pay fruitful for Raiders fans that want him to join the Raiders. And from the speed round, let's get to the sports. And I guess we should start off right here, which is why did you join the Sporting Tribune?
Well, I feel as if there are so many upstart blogs, if you will, and I feel that given Arash's credibility, Arash Markazi's credibility, and what his endeavors are, we actually had a dinner long before he launched this. Myself, him, and his fiance, and we had talked about this project that he had coming and the role he wanted me to play, but it was going to be a delay to bring me aboard because he wanted to make sure that all the dominoes were in place, all the right pieces to, bring me aboard beforehand. He wanted to get sort of, other positions filled and other components with young journalists to get the ball rolling, get the the Google searches out there, so the spiders on the internet could get out there, and the right people were in the right places to make sure that it was functionality. The whole OG connotation and bringing me aboard to tell old Vegas tales, to compare old Vegas to new Vegas when telling stories of whatever I'd be writing about. Excuse me. That it was all due in time. There's still some other projects that he and I have discussed, video projects that we want to venture into. But it was more so to sort of get on the ground level with something that I believe in that can grow based on, like I said, Arash's his background and where he comes from and the people that he knows. And it's his passion for Las Vegas. I get it. He knows a lot of the LA scene, through his background with his other media outlets that he worked for, and then touching upon Hawaii, if you will, and just the bordering states. But the vibe that he wanted from Las Vegas is what I really appreciated most. I'm offered something almost once a month at least, if not every other week, to come aboard, to bring my, it used to be a struggle to just get any sort of bite to be a part of something. But now when you consider my status in terms of where I've come from, how long I've lived here, the stories that I can tell from way back, my own story, so seeing Arash's vision and where he wanted to take this endeavor was intriguing enough for me to just wait it out for him and I to meet. We stay in touch all the time. We talk all the time, especially when he's in town. We had a lunch before the Pro Bowl. We felt it was time to make that move, make the introduction, and jump on board and hit the ground running with, once the football season was over. A lot of times people think, well, let's get going when a football season starts or when a big, busy season starts.
Yeah.
But now is where we lay the groundwork to sort of introduce readers to who I am and sort of, touch upon other areas in Las Vegas and sports. So that way, come next NFL season, we're going full blown, and I think it's a marriage that needed to happen with, like I said, with what Arash's vision was for the coverage of this town and the components he has in place in terms of two OG sports reporters in this town with Steve Karp's resume and my knowledge of Las Vegas. Steve Karp is A1 to know, and above and beyond. I'm a 2-bit hack that just kind of knows how to write.
Stop it.
Knows old school Vegas. So I'm just pleased to be a part of it.
No, look, I'm glad that I can say that we're teammates now, some sorts here at the Sporting Tribune, and you and Steve, top notch. And I'm just trying to do my part here in Vegas. And you talk about Vegas and old Vegas and new Vegas, and Vegas becoming really like the mecca of the sports world. Earlier this week, MLS Commissioner Don Garber spoke to the media before the season opens this Saturday, talked about expansion for the 30th team, kind of confirmed a lot of the reports that it's San Diego and Vegas. Obviously, last week with the NBA All-Star Game, Adam Silver kind of shied away from everything and said, let's focus on the CBA and stuff like that. But Vegas has been talked about, and obviously everything going on in Oakland. For you, if you had to pick between MLB, NBA, and MLS, which one do you think is going to make the move first to come here and have a professional team in Vegas?
I think the NBA, just simply because there are venues ready to house them. When you hear about the MLS, we talk about, which facility is going to be renovated or where's it going to be built? Are they going to renovate Cashman Field? Are they going to build a new stadium? Are they going to get a multi-purpose stadium? Are they going to share the field here or there? MLB definitely needs a new stadium. So there's going to be groundbreaking that needs to take place. That being said, that doesn't mean that the announcement for one of the other two leagues won't come first. Like we could hear from the MLS that they're coming in 2026. We could hear that the MLB is going to expand, or the A's are moving here starting in 2025. But the first one, the first game, the first thing that we could see here would make sense would be the NBA. The only delay that I could see is if LeBron James actually is the person who brings the NBA to Las Vegas, because I think he wants to play long enough to be able to play with his son. And so if that's a few years out of the works, then there's no telling which league is going to make the jump, which one's going to make the official announcement, who's going to own what. There could also be partners that say, okay, LeBron's going to own or eventually buy into the Las Vegas franchise once he retires, and then but the franchise is already here. There's so many dominoes that would need to fall. There are so many pieces to the puzzle. It's just a matter of who wants to make the announcement, where the funds are coming from, where the stadiums are going to be built, where the NBA team's going to play, and if they're going to want their own arena. You know what I mean? The T-Mobile, yes, was built when the NHL was announced and everything, but it was also built with the NBA in mind. You walk around that facility, and since day one, there are signs up next to locker rooms that says NBA visiting locker room, NBA home team locker room. So, it was built within mind off the NBA All-Star game that visited the Thomas and Mack, decades ago, where the deficiencies that the Thomas and Mack had, the lack of sort of facility accommodations for that All-Star game. They pulled it off, but there was also a lot of shortcomings. So T-Mobile was built in mind to be an NBA/NHL venue. So it could very easily house a team quickly, and then with works down the road, finances, they could build their own facility if they wanted. This is becoming a town of facilities, which I tend to think is getting out of hand. But if it's going to bring in revenue to my hometown, and I think eventually it should sort of relieve locals of taxes instead of taking from them. Let's be real, the Allegiant Stadium hotel room tax, it still affects locals that visit the local venues, staycations, meals when entertaining people and going. You're still paying out of your pocket. So it is affecting the locals. The LVCVA that's putting out money for sponsorships for different events that's coming, that's generated. They say it's not generated from local, but there is a mechanism through city council and county commission funding in which the LVCVA is fueled as well. So locals should be somewhat pleased. It's just a matter of when they start seeing some relief off their house tax, off their general sales tax here in the state from professional sports moving into Las Vegas. So I look forward and encourage it to all. I just don't know how many more facilities this town can take.
Arenas everywhere, and I know we have just a couple more minutes. So real quick, this one's going to be a yes or no question before we get into your plugs and everything you're doing with Athletes Unlimited as well. Obviously, we both cover the Aces, and to me personally, I kind of think that the Aces are taking advantage of the fact that it's the WNBA and not at the top of anybody's mind with how they're kind of handling this De'Erica Hamby situation. Would you agree with that? How quiet they've been, I should say.
Yeah, 100%. The WNBA opened. I think if anything, I think that the WNBA or the Aces upper management is probably, it's going to sound weird, but is probably happy that the WNBA has opened up an allegations investigation on the how they're the secret payouts and these secret sponsorships, if you will, and where they're getting money, rather than because it sort of has overtaken the De'Erica Hamby investigation. So these new allegations of misuse of funds and how they're these, I liken it to the show The Sopranos. I brought this up on air before, where you have certain members of outfits getting no-show jobs, right? So there's a construction site and you're getting a piece of this, and you're getting 3 no-show jobs. So basically 3 members of the Soprano family show up every week to get a paycheck, and they don't have to show up for a job. That's a lot of how Vegas council people and commissioners back in the day, they would get hired as a consultant for a specific firm in town that needed to always come in before the board. And they would basically collect a check to be a consultant. And once in a while they check in and they would let them know, hey, this is how you should handle this. And then when that company came before the board, they would recuse themselves from the vote. They would go in the back and then they wouldn't hear the vote, but they'd still have an influence among their board members. Same thing in these mafia related shows. The way Hollywood would depict it, no show jobs is they would just collect a check and not have to show up. That's basically what's being explained, and how it's, that the aces are getting supplemental income is you don't have to show up for these jobs. You're just going to collect a check or collect, in this case, under the table money. So now you're running into IRS infractions. And if that's the case, it's going to not only damage the player, but the team, and then also the company if any tax fraud is involved. That all said, it's overshadowing the whole Dearica Amby situation. The fact that they have never said anything to the effect of, hey, this is a legal issue at this point with the allegations being thrown at us. Our legal counsel has instructed us not to, like, nothing has been even said.
It's embarrassing.
Nikki Fargas's opening statement for the Candace Parker introductory was clearly to detract and make a statement, hey, we're all about the players and their families, which, you could, if you read between the lines, that's exactly why she said what she said. When a local reporter asked a question and it was immediately interrupted and said that Nikki had to get off the call, and she was still on the Zoom call for about 4 seconds and then disappeared, and that she had to get off the call for an 11:30 conference call, and it was 11:38 at the time. It's just all a bad look. It's a bad look that you don't want to address. Somebody who's been a face of the franchise longer than A'ja Wilson, Kelsey Plum, Jackie Young, Chelsea Gray. Dearica Amby was with that San Antonio franchise before Kelsey Plum came along, and then when they moved to Vegas, A'ja and Jackie being drafted. So yes, it's a championship core. Yes, it'll be a dominant team, but Dearica put a lot into this team. She meant a lot to this team. She, again, was the face of the franchise long before anybody else. She deserved a lot better than, and I don't mean, and I'm not, and I say this, when I say she deserved a lot more, she deserved a lot more in terms of explaining from the team side Dearica's allegations. Now, how she was treated, if it was sour grapes, if they came at her a different way and she embellished, we don't know. We don't know why, because the team hasn't said a word. Saying nothing outside of just, hey, we can't comment, it's a bad look. So she deserved at least that. And so, yes, to go back to your question, I think that the Aces have handled that badly. I've written a story since then. I won't touch that situation because I don't know their side of the story, and it's not fair. But and I'll go into media day in a couple of months, with an open mind and not looking to ask questions at that point, because at this point they've made themselves look bad. I don't need to write anything negative. I don't need to, I'm just speaking the facts right now. So I'm not dogging or attacking anybody. You ask me a question, I'm telling you how I feel, and the rest is out there. There's enough people out there that have written their columns, written their opinions. And the point is, and the fact is we see and know what's going on. And when it resolves, it'll play itself out.
Well, Willie, you actually have an 11:30 that you got to get to. So before we get you out of here, any plugs, anything you want to say, last words for your first time on the show?
No, I just, there's a lot of good things coming up. I mean, a lot of people are like, hey, the NFL is over, but there's a lot of, the football season ends, but let's not forget the NFL never goes away. It's a 12-month business. We got the NFL, we got the combine coming up. We got the NFL draft. We're waiting to see what the Raiders are going to do at quarterback position. We're waiting to see what they're going to do with Josh Jacobs. So that storyline still stays alive. Athletes Unlimited is a women's pro league, 5-week league. It opens tonight, Thursday, February 23rd. And for those watching this in a few days, they're housed out of Dallas this year. Last year it was in Las Vegas. 44-woman league. It's a fantastic concept. There are some Las Vegas Aces and a former Ace on the roster. Sydney Colson, Kirsten Bell, Teresa Plaisance, not to mention a number of WNBA stars. The person who I think last year I said that Kelsey Plum. I wrote for the Associated Press that Kelsey Plum was going to be the breakout star of the league and would challenge Asa Wilson for the MVP. She did. I wrote that just after media day, I think 2 games into the season. This year, I think the person to watch is the Los Angeles Sparks guard, Lexi Brown. She's in that league. Natasha Cloud, Isabel Harrison. So a lot of big names in that league that you certainly should tune into and check out. It's going to be on the WNBA League Pass, plus they'll be picked up by some streams. Cindy Brunson, veteran broadcaster, Cheryl Swoops. I will be writing feature stories throughout tonight. I am writing the game recap, so I'm going to be covering that. The XFL, the Vegas Vipers, debut at home. They opened their season last week. This week, they on the road. This week, they're at Cashman Field. So looking forward to that season. I've written a couple of sports betting pieces for that. And of course, we have the Golden Knights are in season, and they're looking for a playoff spot. I think that they're going to get there. And the Aviators are getting underway. We got big league weekend. I do have some big pieces coming up for the Sporting Tribune. I'm going to do a retrospect on the evolution of baseball in Las Vegas. We got comments from Greg Maddux, Don Logan, Bryson Stott. That'll be in the story. I got a piece coming out on William Carrier, a personal profile. I have been wanting to work on this for 2 months, ever since a comment that he gave during a post-game interview during the first part of the season, talking about his offensive outbreak. I just found it intriguing. I just haven't gotten around to it. What perfect spot than on Sporting Tribune. So look forward to that. And then continuing Raiders coverage on the Sporting Tribune. So, yeah, there's a lot of good things that are taking place in Las Vegas, a lot of good reasons to follow myself, you, Steve Karp, Arash, the Sporting Tribune. I got a chance to meet Marissa Flores out of LA on a Zoom. And I had her on my Super Bowl show for ESPN Las Vegas. I'll be on Cofield and Company throughout the week, every single week. So, yeah.
It's a busy man.
Just looking forward to continue exposing Las Vegas sports. And I'll tell you what, Adrian, it's funny. You texted me. You said, "Hey, no suit and tie needed for this Zoom." There probably wasn't going to be any suit and tie planned, but I did want to get cleaned up, and I do want to touch on one thing, if I may. I had a medical procedure yesterday, and I think it's important for guys like myself to talk about this. I'll be 54 in May, but March is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And, you reach a certain age as a male, it's very important to get your a colonoscopy. They say by 50. I got my first one at 48. You're supposed to wait 10 years. I had felt some weird sensations in my stomach. I talked to my doctor about it. She said, "Why don't you go back to Zimmerman?" Michael Zimmerman here in town is a fantastic doctor. I have my second colonoscopy in 5 years. You're supposed to get them again, 10 years apart. But I think it's important for men in particular to talk about this, along with mental health and suicide awareness. I'm a big mental health advocate. You've known me a short time, Adrian, but if you follow me on social media, everybody knows that I talk about mental health. I talked about my own suicidal thoughts back in 2018 and came out about it. I wrote an article on my website, wgramirez.com, and battling my own suicidal thoughts. One of my favorite scenes out of Ocean's 11 with Matt Damon and Brad Pitt is when Matt Damon is explaining the ongoing daily activity of Andy Garcia's character. And at the end of the speech, Matt Damon says, "Boy, you guys can really pick him." And Brad Pitt asks Matt Damon, he goes, "You scared?" And Damon says, "Are you suicidal?" And Brad Pitt answers, "Only in the morning." And I couldn't relate to that phrase any further because, there are times where mental health takes over and it's not strong enough to overcome the cerebral health, which is uncontrollable. That's where depressive states or suicidal thoughts kick in, and it takes your mental health to conquer them. And so by talking about it regularly like this, like it's a normal everyday thing, just like the phrase, "It's okay to not be okay," which I have tattooed on my arm, it makes it okay to talk about such things. With that comes something like getting a routine colonoscopy. March is, as we just mentioned, Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And I encourage older men to feel comfortable in going and getting this process done. It can be time impeding. It can be, yes, the process, the prep the day before, having to drink the solution. It can be a trying, but occurrence, but it's something that's needed and should be made aware to more men to where it feels okay. Again, I repeat this. I don't think much of myself. I mean, I just, as far as like, hey, I know what I do. I know where I rank among local, reporters. Although, I do what I can. I've sort of raised my level as a freelance reporter and accepted that I've become a full-time freelancer, that I'll probably retire as one as well. And I'm fine with that. I do what I can from a writing standpoint. I'm a B-rated voice on ESPN radio, and I'm just along for the ride with the guys and appreciate the time that I get. But if I can reach one person when it comes to mental health, if I can reach one person when it comes to suicide awareness, when I do my annual talk with the local high school coach and the student leadership classes that he teaches, and if I can reach one male to just go out and get their colonoscopy when it's time to get it done and be comfortable with it, then I feel like I served a purpose in sort of being there for someone maybe that I don't know or I do know. So I just wanted to touch upon that and make sure, going back to your don't wear a suit, I needed to shower up and shave and at least look presentable, because the last 24 hours it's either been, knocked out, anesthesiaed up, or resting to recover from yesterday's procedure.
Well, I'm glad you're recovering, and health is your wealth. And what you said, I stand by 100%. We take therapy very seriously around here at the Sporting Tribune Today podcast. And look, I'm glad you're a part of the team. This is our first time we've actually had a full length conversation. I'll just say it right now, since this is our first time and your first time on the podcast. Thank you for being an example of how to do this properly and do it good. I still remember walking into my first Aces game credentialed like a deer with the headlights, not really knowing what to do, but just trying to do my best and being one of the examples here in the city on how to do it right.
Yeah, that's it's like I tell everybody, the young journalists that come about, especially the UNLV journalists, once you put that credential on, it doesn't matter who you're sitting next to, whether it's the Willie Ramirez's, the Steve Karps, the Arash Markazis, the Adrian Hernandez's, or my girl Jade Thomas, who's a fantastic up and coming journalist, and she's with UNLV, a former basketball player here in town, Sam Thomas's sister, who, she's with the Rebel Report and up and coming. And it's like I've explained to other journalists, young journalists, there's a couple of guys that are on the NHL beat. I remember when nobody would talk to them and they sat at the end of press row, but I told them back then, we're talking about Jesse Granger and Danny Webster. I was like, hey, when you put that credential on, you are as equal to anybody else on this press row. Nobody is better than you. Nobody deserves higher, consideration than you. If you're credentialed for an event, then you act like it and you walk in with the confidence that you belong there. Yes, it can be intimidating at times, depending the event. Yes, you can walk in, as you said, like with the deer in headlights, but have the confidence to know that if you're credentialed, you walk in there like you belong there and do your job efficiently. And, if you got any questions, come to me. I have no problem spending time and talking. I'd much rather talk to an eager journalist than an ego-filled, bloviating, journalist that thinks that they're better than everybody, which, trust me, I've run across a lot of those.
Listen, Willie, thank you as always, and welcome to the team, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for the time.
All right, peace.